On today's show, this man has 135 #1 singles on the dance charts and counting. He's a producer, he's a remixer, he's a songwriter, he's a DJ. Please welcome Dave Aude.
Hey, what's up? Very excited to be here today, and I'm actually pretty afraid to answer whatever questions Mike has come up with.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Mike Grand Show, and today's special guest, he's a record producer, he is a songwriter, he is a remixer, and he's a DJ, and he has 135 and counting. How do you do this? #1 singles on the dance charts. Please welcome Dave Aude. Hey Dave, how you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited. It's nice to meet you, and always excited to meet new people.
You're welcome. I mean, you are just phenomenal. You've worked with so many amazing people that I have to list some of these names now that we'll talk about a little later. But just so the fans at home, if they're not familiar with you, know, you've worked with U2, Madonna, will.i.am, One Direction, Katy Perry, Britney Spears, Sting, Rihanna, Amy Grant, Pussycat Dolls, Lady Gaga, LeAnn Rimes, Beyonce, Jennifer Lopez, Korn, Bare Naked Ladies, CeCe Peniston, Selena Gomez, Backstreet Boys, Ariana Grande, Toni Braxton, and Betty White.
Yes.
First question for you before we get into anything is I want to know what you did with Betty White.
Well, man, that's a great story. I do a lot of stuff, music with a good friend of mine, Luciana. And Luciana is a hoot. She's hilarious in her own right, and very, very talented songwriter. She's actually been DJing lately, and singer. She could sing anything. She's from England, and I love Luciana. So Luciana and I came up with a song we were going to release called "I'm Still Hot" a few years ago. It was probably a decade ago, I think. And Luciana at the time, her best friend, who his name was David, was in a nightclub, and her best friend's gay, and that I'll tell you why that's I'm telling you that is because he was at a gay club, and a lot of the guys, at this particular gay club one night, he was at a club one night, had their shirts off, and they were dancing around, sweating. This is a crazy story, and David ran into some really huge guy, and said, "Oh my God, you smell great. Like your BO or whatever you got going on, it smells great." And he called Luciana over. This is a crazy, I know it's kind of weird. And Luciana, you got to smell this guy. She came over, and they became friends immediately with this guy in this club. For whatever reason, they became friends. And this guy was actually working with a client, and the client needed a song for this video they were putting together. It was for Lifeline was the name of the company at the time, and they needed a song. They needed a theme song for a video, and Betty White had agreed to be in this video about the Lifeline. Lifeline was like, I think it was reverse mortgage or some kind of investments for elderly people. And so they got Betty White involved with this company. And at the time, Betty White was on a TV show called Hot in Cleveland. So the guy goes, "Oh my God, your song will be perfect. Hot in Cleveland, I'm still hot. Is there some way we can get Betty on your song?" So we basically rewrote a verse, had Betty do a whole version with Betty and Luciana on the record. So originally it was a Luciana record. And then we just took out a lot of Luciana stuff and put Betty on there. Betty went in the studio and one word at a time recorded each word. And if the video's online, you can check it out. It's Luciana and Betty White, "I'm Still Hot." and it's phenomenal. It turned out crazy. Betty White in the middle of the video just doing like break dancing, and that we pull up in the limo. Luciana pulls up in a limo in the beginning of the video, and Betty White is a big uh, uh, supporter of the LA Zoo. So they filmed a lot of it at the LA Zoo, and Betty just asked me to take any of her proceeds and pay it to the LA Zoo. So through somebody's BO, they met Luciana and came up with this idea to take our song "I'm Still Hot" and put Betty on it. I mean, it's just kind of weird, all the things that came together for this, and they spent a lot of money on the video. It looks great, and yeah, it was awesome. And we had like a little record release party at the Abbey in West Hollywood, and Betty was there, and I was there, and Luciana with a red carpet, and it was fun. I mean, so I've done some crazy things in my life, music-wise, over the past couple decades, and that was definitely 100% top 5.
Awesome. Yeah. So tell us how you got started in the music business.
That was a long story, I know. How did I get started in the music business? That's a great question. I was always very obviously I was a lover of music growing up, as a lot of people are. Loved music. Took piano lessons as a young kid when I was 8 or 9 years old. So I played piano. That translated into my father bought me a synthesizer when I was 13. And when I was 13, that was a big deal. Other kids didn't have synthesizers. It was like a crazy nobody. I mean, like when I say no, everybody had guitars. So turntables weren't even a thing yet. So it was like guitars or drums or piano. My dad knew somebody in the business, and I got a synthesizer. So I became really enthralled in learning how the synthesizer worked and all the stuff that went along with it, drum machines and sequencers and all this electronic music sort of stuff. So really the beginning of my life and my career started with that. And I happened to be at a club one night in my early 20s, and I overheard somebody say they're starting a record label, and they needed a keyboard player to do music with for the label. And so I raised my hand and I made friends with this guy, and he ended up starting a label, and my record career, my music career and my record career was started just being in the right place at the right time, overhearing somebody, raising my hand, and that label ended up being a label called Moonshine Music, aka Moonshine Records. And by the mid 90s, they were the largest dance label, or actually largest independent label in the United States, putting out a lot of DJ mixes, which was very big thing on CD in the 90s. So that's where my career started.
And how did you get the idea to even be a remixer? How did you even know that was a profession back then?
I didn't know it was a profession, but in the 90s, when technology sort of got to a place where you were able to remix, right? Because before the 90s, you couldn't really remix a record because there was not a lot of digital stuff going on where you could change tempos and change keys and stuff like that. So with the 90s came the advent of digital recording, and also being able to speed things up, speed things down. And really the first big remix I heard that inspired me was Todd Terry's remix of Everything But the Girl Missing. So that was really a big remix, where the remix got bigger than the original, you know? And so remixing became a thing. And in 1995, I had already been, the label got started, and I was doing all this dance music for all these artists. And of course I was producing and remixing. It's kind of the same thing, really, for Moonshine. And Reprise Records heard about it, and they asked me to remix Bare Naked Ladies, which was my first major label remix. And in 1995, the big sort of there's all these little subgenres of dance music. Before 95, there was 2 kinds of dance music: house, techno. That's it. And most DJs played both, because why not? It was still dance music. So you went from a techno record or a ravey record to a vocal house record. and that's all the clubs in New York and LA and Paris and everywhere else in the world were playing everything. It was a great time for dance music, just exploding before all these crazy subgenres. So 95, I was asked to do this major label remix for Reprise Records for Bare Naked Ladies, their first big record called 1 Week. And at that time, Fatboy Slim was just sort of exploding. And I did what's called a big beat mix, which was the big beat was basically Fatboy Slim style type remix. And that's what I did in 95.
How do you go about your creative process to remix a song?
It's real. Look, I listen to it. The first thing I do with every single remix is figure out, okay, what does the label or the artist want me to do on this? Because there's different reasons. In the 90s, there was one reason to do a remix, and it was basically to get it into clubs. That was it. There was no other reason. They want DJs to play a new version of their song just to get their song out there to more people and get, hey, I love this remix. Let me listen to the original. So that was the only reason. Now there's a million other reasons. It could be we want it to be on a specific Spotify playlist. That could be the only reason. It could be we want a version for people to work out to in the gyms, right? It could be, yes, we want it to be a club record. So usually the club record would go along with the gym thing, right? But there's a lot of different reasons. It could be, I just did Reba McEntire Fancy. They wanted, basically, Fancy was 30 years old, so they wanted a new version of Fancy. It's been 30 years. Let's have a new version of it. So I did a new version, which is like basically just the original pumped up on steroids, a little more fun, dancey, but it's not a dancey dance record, but you can dance to it and have fun. So there's so many reasons to do remixes these days. So that's the first thing I do is find out what the label wants, what they want me to do. The second thing I do is figure out, okay, once I figure that out, what tempo am I gonna be at? Obviously you can change anything to any tempo now because of technology. Doesn't mean you should do that, right? Doesn't mean because a record's at 70 beats per minute, doesn't mean you should be at 100, right? And it has nothing to do with tempo. People say, well, isn't it easier to go from 70 to 80? Or no, it has nothing to do with tempo. It has to do with tempo and how they're singing. Because if they're singing a lot of words in 8 bars, right? That's going to be harder than if they're singing only a couple. If they're spreading out their words, that's a lot easier to squeeze and make faster. So it's those two things combined. So I figure out tempo, and then I start thinking, okay, here's all these records this week that I love. Records by this person, that remixer, this artist, that artist. Here's what's big in the UK. Here's what's big in the US. I put all these things in my head together and say, well, this would sound good kind of in this zone over here. Maybe like Mark Knight type drums, and maybe Tiesto's new house sort of bass house kind of sound. So I kind of just take all these influences together and kind of put it together. Start with the acapella usually and the drums. First things I usually do is tempo, acapella, drums, and then I arrange and start filling in things. Usually start with the bass, and then everything just I kind of like just go fix, and then before you know it, there's something cool to listen to.
Yep, and definitely, I mean, it definitely brings life to a song, like a new life sometimes to a song. If let's say, for example, if it was a slow song and now we put it into the dance version, I mean, you can totally just, the whole concept of the song is completely different. Are there any songs that stand out in your mind that you've done where you're like, I feel like this is a totally different like song, totally, you can totally different way?
I'd say probably a third of the remixes I've done have ended up going like crazy, like, wow, I didn't think that was going to end up being like, I mean, sometimes I just sort of, it's crazy because the opposite's true. Sometimes I have a record where people go, well, what did you do? But see, the great thing about music is if you remember in your mind a record from the 80s, for instance, you remember how great it sounds in your mind. And then you might sit down and listen to it and go, oh, it didn't sound as good as I remember it. You forget kind of exactly how it sounds, right? You just remember the memory is great, the song, maybe where you were at the time, who you were dating, who you were breaking up with, all that stuff, the clothes you were wearing, the car you were driving, all that stuff. That's what you remember. You attach that to music. You don't remember exactly how it sounds. And a lot of those records from years ago didn't have the technology we have now. So sometimes, like the Reba, for instance, that's a good example because it's one of the most recent ones I've done. I just took it and just made it sound 2021 better. I used a lot of the guitars and stuff from the original. I added some new stuff. So I'm trying to think a good example of a record that I just ripped apart. Actually, I wouldn't say ripped apart, but let's look at Sting. If you love somebody, set them free. So beginning of 2019, Sting asked me to do 5 or 6 sides, tracks on a new album he was putting together called My Songs. He was redoing a lot of his older, bigger records. So I redid a song called Fragile. I redid Englishman in New York. I redid Brand New Day and a couple others. And I said, hey, one of my favorite songs of yours is If You Love Somebody, Set Them Free. Would you mind if I took a shot? People usually tell me what they want me to do. I turned around and said, hey, I love this song. I don't know why I have this weird thing in my head. Can I try and do something with it? And they said, yeah, do it. We'll let you try. And obviously if I would have failed, I wouldn't have gotten paid or they wouldn't have used it or whatever. But I just had a weird inclination that something was going to turn out cool. And it did. So I basically flipped the whole song and turned it into like a new disco version. And the crazy thing is I kept the original bass that Sting played. And if you listen to my new version of that record, you would think it was always a disco record. You would never know that bass was in a kind of a really, really verby pop 80s song. You would never know it wasn't a disco record. You would think, oh, this is how the bass was played. And did I keep the sax in that? No, I added sax. Do I add sax? Yeah. So it's funny, that record you would never know it's the same record, but the crazy thing is I used the same bass. So it's not like I just redid everything. I carried the bass over here, gave it disco drums, put some disco guitars in it, and next thing you knew, it was a new disco smash.
And then after working with Moonshine, you went off on your own. And as we can see on your shirt there, Audacious Records. So can you tell us a little bit about how that got started?
Listen, I mean, Audacious Records is just my little record label, and it's nothing serious. I don't consider myself a record mogul or whatever. And I just really, I wanted to start my own label to put my records out on and just have control over things, what I want to do, what I want to put out, what remixes I want to do, who I want to work with. And it's just really records I've done with my friends. I don't just sign other people's records. People always send me records. Hey, I want to put this, consider this for putting it on Audacious. Like, no, it's a great record, but I don't sign third-party records. It's just a little record label for me to put out my own stuff on. And it's just fun. I made vinyl for the first 2 years of my label. When I had my label, I was actually making vinyl. And then people stopped playing vinyl in clubs, right? So I stopped making it. It's kind of expensive to make vinyl. But in the first couple of years, I made a bunch of vinyl and I sold a bunch of vinyl. And then I had a bunch of vinyl that I didn't sell, and then I stopped making it. So it's just a fun little project for me.
And another fun project that you were on is in 2008, you appeared on the Pussycat Dolls Presents Girlicious. You worked with Robin Anton on her expert team to help the girls with rehearsals, and you worked also as a music director on the Doll Domination Tour as well. So can you tell us a little bit about your time working with the Pussycat Dolls?
That's a long story too. And I'll try to make it short. So I was contacted by a guy named Nick Hexum, who's the lead singer of 311, band called 311. He said, "Hey Dave, I heard you do dance music. My girlfriend wants to do some dance music. Can you meet with her and see if you can start working with her?" So I said, okay. So I drove to Nick's house, and his girlfriend was Nicole Scherzinger. So I obviously met Nicole and I fell in love immediately. Oh my God, who are you? Where'd you come from? You're amazing. You're beautiful. You can sing anything. And the next thing maybe that day or the day, very soon after, I introduced her to one of my best friends, Jeff Haddad. And Jeff ended up managing her and got her into audition for Pussycat Dolls. So I was really sort of involved with Pussycat Dolls from the beginning. Met Robin, of course, and I ended up being there. I did a lot of their music and a lot of remixes, obviously, and became very good friends with Nicole. I'm still friends with Nicole. And so they had a TV show years later, right? Where they were looking for the next Pussycat Doll. And the first season went really well. So it went so well, they go, "Oh, we have a little bit budget now for a music director. So you want to come on and be the music director on the TV show?" So I did. And I made all the music for the TV show and was on TV for a little bit. And I had a moment where I was on, oh my God, what's the TV show? What's the funny show where they play all the realities, all the TV shows where they make fun of people?
The Soup.
I was on The Soup for a second. So I made The Soup. So that was a big moment of my life when I was on The Soup for a second. Yeah, I made some crazy face at whatever. Robin was doing something funny and I made some weird face, and that was a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to see sort of how those things get made, the TV shows.
And then after working all these years, perfecting your craft and everything, finally, with all these hit singles you have, you get nominated for a Grammy in 2010. Your first nomination was for Dean Cole's "I Want You."
Dean Coleman.
Coleman. I'm sorry, Dean Coleman.
Okay, it's all right. It's like Birdcage. And Dean Coleman, and I'll tell you a little secret about that record. Go ahead. I don't want to stop you, but who do you know what's it say the artist is? Dean Coleman featuring?
I am honestly not sure.
No, it's okay. Nobody knows. It's Dean Coleman featuring DMCA, who is AKA the lead singer of Maroon 5. Adam Levine didn't want anybody to know he was on that record, so they just came up with some DMCA thing. So it's kind of crazy. My first nomination had Adam Levine on the vocal, and it was very lucky. It was a totally obscure record and got nominated, but it sort of woke me up to, hey, somebody's noticing what I'm doing. It was a very cool moment.
Yeah, I'm surprised it took so long, because I knew all your work, over the years too, hearing your remixes, it would take that long. But then finally you win in 2016. Mark Ronson, Bruno Mars, Uptown Funk.
Mark Ronson, Bruno Mars. The biggest record of 2015. So just a lucky moment in my life. I was asked to remix the biggest record of the year. And so when I won the Grammy, I didn't expect to win the Grammy. Obviously, you never know what's going to happen. But I knew I had a pretty good chance because I was up for the biggest record. How many Grammys that record won? Like 3 or 4 Grammys that year. So I knew I had a pretty good chance. And I think when people voted, they also were voting like, "Oh, Dave, he's done all these records. He probably deserves a Grammy if anybody does for remixing." So I think it was probably a lot of Uptown Funk and a little bit Dave's been doing it for a while.
So now you continue to make these great hits. Most recently, my personal favorite that you've come out with is the Coyote Ugly soundtrack remix. You've remixed those songs and did a mega mix for it. And did a great version, Can't Fight the Moonlight, and the other 3 songs on there. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I can. I mean, so Leanne, I got familiar with Leanne's music when her label hired me to remix I Need You back in 1997. And I Need You, I don't know if you remember that song, but phenomenal, one of her big records, beautiful, beautiful song, all over the radio. And so that was the first Leanne remix. And over the years, I've been asked to remix, many more Leanne records. So Leanne and I sort of slowly became friends, and I consider her a friend now. We're friends. We work with a lot with the same people. And so last year, was it it was last year, right? 2020. So last year was a weird year, and but it was also like, hey, Coyote Ugly is going to be 20 years old. Was it 20? It was 20 years old. And so let's have some fun. And they originally said, hey Dave, let's mega mix, do a mega mix. So I said, that's a great idea, having a mega mix of all the songs. But I go, but I'm not just going to do like a little piece. I go, I need to remix every song and then take those 4 songs and put them into a mega mix. It's not like, I shouldn't treat it like one song. I need to treat it like 4 songs. And the label's like, oh yeah, that's a good point. You should probably do that. So fortunately, I had that good idea to do that, and I actually ended up with 4 really good remixes. And I love Leanne. Nick, I'm very lucky to know a lot of really good singers. Nicole was at the time when I met Nicole, she was just phenomenal, and she still is. And now I've done a lot of work with Leanne, and I've just finished actually a couple new remixes for Leanne. And Leanne is just naturally one of the best, if not the best singer I've ever known.
And that original song, I mean, it's just amazing. They were able to remix that back in the day. And then to think now you're going to come up with a whole new remix. I mean, the remix already was amazing that they had back in the day, and you did a brand new one. So, I mean, did you get a little nervous or anything about that, having to try to make magic twice?
I mean, yeah, I'm always nervous. Look, I'm very lucky I get to work on big records, and Can't Fight the Moonlight was a big movie. It was a big song all over radio. I think the song actually was way bigger than the movie was at the time. The movie became a big hit slowly over time, just people watching VHS or DVD or whatever. It's my wife's favorite movie, I think, of all time, which is cool because I got to remix the song. And Graham Stack did a remix back in the day when the song was all over radio. So his remix got a lot of radio play as well because the original was already on radio. So, unfortunately, my remix isn't getting on the radio. And if that's a big deal to you, then I guess then that's important. But look, I did something completely different than Graham Stack or the original. So, and I made sure to do that. So there was never going to get compared. And it's 20 years later. So, I just did something that I thought was cool, and hopefully it lasts another 20 years.
Another artist that you worked with was Beyonce. Can you tell us about that?
Well, I mean, Beyonce, what can you say about Beyonce? She has as good as songs as anybody. I mean, and you haven't asked me, but I'll tell you, probably one of my favorite remix. Well, the first Beyonce, how lucky am I? The first Beyonce record, I think it was the first, was it? Upgrade You might have been the first one. I'm trying to remember what the first one they asked me to do was. Was Upgrade You Beyonce or was it Destiny's Child? But I was very lucky. They asked me to remix Single Ladies. And after that, like immediately they said, we want you to do Halo. And so that's, to this day, I just played it last week on my stream. I play it every week, I think, on my stream now, because it's literally one of my favorite remixes I've done. So if I have a Dave Aude top 10, Halo is for sure in there. Just Evan Bogart wrote the song. Great. Evan and One Republic, lead singer of One Republic, and they wrote it. Great song. Beyonce, Halo. It's timeless. I still play it. People love it. So yeah, and I've done 3 or 4, and then I did probably one of my biggest unknown remix I've ever done. I put on SoundCloud, and at the time there was a point where it was doing. I think I did. I ended up with 50 million plays of it on SoundCloud before SoundCloud went absolutely crazy and shut down everybody that had all this stuff that they didn't own up. Obviously, I do remixes, I don't own them, but I had a Beyonce a remix of Partition that I did for the label. And when I did the remix of Partition, it was at the time when trap and twerk were just sort of exploding. So I did like a twerk remix of that, and it is by far one of the greatest things I've ever done. But it didn't get released because when that album came out, Beyonce made the decision she didn't want remixes to come out anymore, only original stuff. So the label was still paying for remixes, but only as promotion to promote the original versions. So it's unfortunate when that version got taken down from SoundCloud. There's nowhere for people to listen to that song, to that remix. Very sad. But I did Run the World as well, so I've been very lucky to remix a bunch of great Beyonce records.
Yep. And then another artist you did most recently to the Backstreet Boys. You've done some for them as well.
Yes, Backstreet's Back. Yeah, that was a fun record. That was a couple years ago. That was 3 or 4 years ago, but that was fun. And Backstreet had the biggest tour in 2019, so they're still around. Backstreet is back, and at some point I might do another one for them. They're great, and they're always fun. They're always fun to remix.
And then you also did One Direction, Niall Horan. You did his song as well.
Yep.
And then Amy Grant was another good one, Baby Baby.
Amy Grant, they asked, that was fun because they called me and said, hey, we're going to do a remix album. Which song do you want to remix? And I said, you have to ask, like, is there a bigger Amy Grant song than Baby Baby? I mean, look, if you're an Amy Grant fan, you probably think Every Heartbeat. That's a good song too. But of course I said Baby Baby. And that was fun. It's fun. Listen, my job is great when I am able to work on great songs. And right now I'm working on the new Demi Lovato song. So I'm very lucky. This is the best part of my life and my career is when I get to work on great artists and great songs.
Who is the one artist, and I want to see, because I have somebody that I'm going to recommend to you, but I want to see who you say is the one artist that you haven't worked with that you want to work with?
I get asked this a lot. And I couldn't even tell you anybody. I haven't done any Sam Smith. Sam Smith would be fun. Just off the top of my head, I haven't thought about that question in the last few months, but Sam Smith would be fun. I haven't done any Sam Smith records, have I? No. It'd probably be fun to do. I haven't done Miley Cyrus. Miley would be fun, and she does a lot of remixes, which is kind of surprising that I haven't done anything for her yet. Maybe Billie Eilish would be fun too. I know another one who I have worked with, sort of. Taylor Swift. T-Sizzle.
Yep.
Who are you going to suggest?
So the person that I'm thinking of, and it's one particular song that honestly I think would be huge in a dance version.
Oh.
Mariah Carey.
Okay.
From the Daydream album, the song Forever, the ballad Forever.
And no one's remixed that? Are you sure?
No one has ever remixed
Come
it.
on!
I can't find a remix, and I'm telling you right now, that song should be in a dance format. That would be a perfect dance format song.
I'm writing it down right now because maybe I'll make a phone call. That, you know what? So that Mariah definitely comes to mind a lot. And maybe the reason I just didn't mention Mariah is because she's not really making too many records now. She made a record recently? Has she?
Yeah, she made one. I think it was the other year.
Okay.
Just
But
one, but
yeah,
not, she's
I
not
just
coming out with them as much as back in the day.
she is for sure up there with all the, and I never did a Whitney song either. So I mean, yeah, if I could go back and remix somebody that I didn't get to remix back in the day when like my career started, I would probably 100% have to say Whitney, right? I'd be stupid not to say Whitney Houston because she was, she was big in clubs and big everywhere. So that would have been cool. Seemed Thunderpuss did a lot of Whitney stuff, and good for Chris and Barry. Good for those guys, very talented guys. They did a great job. And I think I wasn't ready probably I wasn't there yet,
Yeah.
I hadn't come into my own yet. So it's all timing.
Yeah. And is
And I
there any artist that you can think of that who in your opinion is going to be like the next big thing, that they do great work that just maybe hasn't gotten noticed yet?
Well, I mean, I'm working on an artist right now who's a friend of mine. And I just got lucky to be friends with her 10 years ago when she was starting out her career. And she's actually, I think she's blowing up. And she has a new song that I'm working on right now. Her name is LP. And her new song is called The Only One. And LP, those are her initials, is very unique. She sounds like nobody else. She's an incredible, amazing writer, performer, person. She has her own thing. And she's also part of the LGBTQ community. So it's kind of cool. Yeah. There's a lot of reasons to like LP. So I'm very excited. I'm working on that song right now. And if I had to just, I don't really make those kind of, predictions, but she's doing great,
Okay. And now it's time to play the lightning round, where I'm going to ask you to pick between a couple people. Right now, I'm going to do a special late 90s, early 2000s music edition of the lightning round.
Okay.
So you tell me, which one is your favorite? Backstreet Boys or NSYNC?
Backstreet Boys.
Britney Spears or Christina Aguilera?
100% Britney Spears.
Jessica Simpson or Mandy Moore?
100% Jessica Simpson.
TLC or Salt and Pepper?
TLC.
Kid Rock or Limp Bizkit?
Kid Rock.
Eminem or Dr. Dre?
Dre.
98 Degrees or 5?
98 Degrees.
Spice Girls or All Saints?
I'm gonna say Spice Girls.
Destiny's Child or En Vogue?
In Vogue.
Good Charlotte or Blink 182?
Neither.
Madonna or Janet Jackson?
Janet.
Alanis Morissette or Joan Osborne?
Alanis.
Ace of Base or The Real McCoy?
Ace of Base. Wow, I love Real McCoy. Come on.
Yeah.
Another night. Come on.
They were both great.
Yeah.
Mariah Carey or Whitney Houston?
That's tough, but Whitney. Come on. I mean, it's Whitney.
Yeah.
Sorry.
LFO or O-Town?
Neither.
And then the biggest song that you think kind of defines that era, would you pick Baby One More Time, I Want It That Way, or Bye Bye Bye?
I Want It That Way.
Okay.
Easy.
And what would you like to say to all the fans who are watching this today?
Man, I just want to say thank you. I mean, I've been doing I just started doing a Twitch stream, and I do it on Sundays, and I just started doing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning, first thing in the morning, like early, like 8:30 Central, 9:30 a.m. Eastern, and I'm meeting so many new people there, and I just want to say to all my people out there supporting my music over the years, new, old, whatever, thank you so much. That's why I do it. I'm in a studio 18 hours a day for the last couple decades, and it's great to know that people appreciate what I'm doing. It's nice to hear that. It's not about money. I mean, I feel very lucky to support my family doing what I do, but it's really about, I love producing records. I do love what I do, and I don't take it for granted at all. And it's really great just to connect with people that I would never connect with if it wasn't for COVID, making Twitch a big thing. And so now I'm connecting with all these people that I really wouldn't have connected with because I'm not really just on Facebook all day. And it's easier for people to pop into your stream and say hi as opposed to DMing you on Instagram. So it's cool to have this new format. And one of the good things to come out of COVID is this. So thanks for all your support.
And is the best way for people to contact you, how would you say?
To contact me. The best way is, it's really easy to contact me. If you go to daveaude.com, you can just click contact. I don't make it hard for the stalkers to contact me. So it's pretty easy. And you can just always also pop into my stream. That's very easy too. I mean, it's not hard. There's no, I don't have a moat around my house. So I probably need to put one there, but it's very easy to contact me.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us here today. I had a blast.
Thank you for having me. Let's do it again.
You're welcome. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll talk to you all soon. Bye, everybody.